Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else. Well, I try and figure out what this whole mental health thing is supposed to be about. Now, today I want to talk about something that I learned about the other day, and that's that Wizards of the Coast is ending its partnership with Judge Academy. So, according to the official WPN Wizards site, as of October 13th, Wizards of the Coast will no longer be partnering with Judge Academy. We appreciate the work that Judge Academy has done over the past few years in service of Magic judges and organizers, and we are currently working with tournament organizers and stores for a new framework and approach to Magic judging. We do not expect this affect most events, as organizers of major Magic events have close ties and existing contracts with judges that will not be affected. In the interim, they expect judge conferences will continue to take place at MagicCon events, and that organizers will continue to work with and hire experienced judges for tournaments for events. So, this is a relatively big thing going on, is because judges are integral at nearly every level of the game, and they're not completely backing away from judging or things for judges, but the Judge Academy has been around for, I don't even know. Basically, a version has been around, since the beginning of the game. And I know it's gone through a lot of changes over the years, the most recent being, I think, back in 2019, when they set up the current Judge Academy. I don't know, it really does kind of feel like the end of an era, right? And I don't know. I guess we could say we saw this coming when was it? 2021, I think, that they said that they're not doing judge promo cards anymore. So I don't know. It feels like a little bit of that corporate greed that's always going to be present is what kind of led to this. That said, I do hope all of my friends out there that are judges, and all of the judges in general, have some kind of protection for what they do. Much like myself in my day-to-day job. I do a job, I am expected to get paid for doing that job. I hope that they are still getting paid for doing this job. That's really all I have to say on the matter. And yeah, I think I'm just going to roll this into the next part, because I don't want to sit and think about it for too long. So I will be right back, and we're going to talk about some enchantments. Hey, I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff. Believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast and me, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And we're back. Now, I said we're going to talk about enchantments. You see, for the longest time, I've had a Bant Enchantress deck at one point it was one commander, and then eventually I changed it to Rafik, and it just kind of got to a point where it just wasn't that fun to play. I never really got the mana base correct, all that jazz. Well, with the most recent set, we got the like roll tokens commander deck. And so I took parts of that and parts of my Bant Enchantress deck and kind of shoved them together just to make a Selesnia Enchanter deck. And I kind of fell onto two options for the commander I wanted to go with because I did not want to go with Sithis. So the options were, well, I guess there was a few. I could have went with Elevere of the Wild Court, which was the face commander from that deck, which is 2, a green and a white for a 4/4 human knight. Whenever she enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a virtuous roll token on another target creature you control. That means the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. And whenever an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. I did think this was good, but I didn't necessarily want this in the command zone. The next one I could have went with was also from the Wilds of Eldraine, which is Sir Armont the Redeemer, which is 3, a green and a white for a 4/4 human knight. When Sir Armont enters the battlefield, you create a monster roll token attached to another creature you control. So that gives it +1/+1 and trample. And enchanted creatures you control get +1/+1. Still not quite the way I wanted to take this. There is Siona, Captain of the Pylias, which is 1, a green and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. When she enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an aura card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. I feel like there's a version of this that does run her with all of the enchantments that you can like pay a cost to get back out of your graveyard. But let's talk about the two that it kind of basically boiled down to. The first one is Calyx, Guided by Fate. 1, a green and a white for a 2/2 human druid. It has Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And whenever him or an enchantment creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you can create a token copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control, and you only do this once per turn. That is very powerful. I almost went with that, but I ended up going with Danitha, New Benalia's Light. 1, a green and a white for a 2/2 human knight with Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. And once during each of your turns, you may cast an aura or equipment spell from your graveyard. The reason I went with Danitha over Calyx is because I feel like with Calyx, I want to get him down immediately to start generating his value. With Danitha, she doesn't necessarily care about enchantments entering the battlefield. She's there for when I need to start getting them back from my graveyard. So I'm less incentivized to run her out on 3 unless I have nothing else to do, whereas Calyx would always want to come out on 3. So that's where I kind of landed. Now, I mean, it can't be an Enchantress deck without Enchantresses. So, just to quickly go through the list, we have Argothian Enchantress, 1 and a green, 0/1 human druid, not dryad, with Shroud, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you draw a card. Then we have Eidolon of Blossoms, which is 2 green for a 2/2 spirit with Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Femref Enchantress, green and a white for a 1/2 summon Enchantress. Whenever an enchantment is put into any graveyard from play, draw a card. Core Spirit Dancer is 1 and a white for a 0/2 core wizard. It gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, and whenever you cast an aura spell, you may draw a card. Mesa Enchantress is 1 white for a 0/2 human druid. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. Satyr Enchanter is 1 a green and a white for a 2/2 Satyr druid. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Setesian Champion is 2 and a green for a 1/3 human warrior with Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on the champion and draw a card. SRAM Senior Artificer is 1 and a white for a 2/2 Dwarf Advisor. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. In this case, it's all auras. The Tanglespan Lookout is 2 and a green for a 2/3 Satyr. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And Verduran Enchantress, 1 green for a 0/2 Druid. Whenever you play an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. So there's a lot of Enchantress effects. And I actually mentioned one that I'm not running earlier, which is Sithis Harvest Hand. I don't even think I own one of those right now. No, the true meat of this deck is going to be your enchantments. So part of the reason we can still have 28 creatures in the deck is because like a third of them also have enchantments, super types, and then the additional 27 like full enchantments that we are running. And we tried to keep it mostly on the cheaper side of enchantments. I think we only have one enchantment that's 5 mana, and that's Mantle of the Ancients, which is 3 white for an aura. Enchant a creature you control. When the mantle enters the battlefield, return any number of target aura and or equipment spells from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to the enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it. But yeah, other than that, got a couple of 4s, one being Bear Umbra, 2 green for an aura, enchanted creature gets +2/+2, and whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands you control. But one of the things I guess 2 of the things I leaned into was using enchantments for other things in the deck. One of those being removal, and one of those being ramp. So, as far as stuff for removal, we have things like Banishing Light, 2 and a white, enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. And Oblivion Ring, 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile another non-land permanent. When Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield, return it under its owner's control. And then all of our ramp is, again, things like Utopia Sprawl, single green for an enchant forest. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Whenever the enchanted forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana of the chosen color to their mana pool. Also things like Wild Growth, which is also a single green. Aura, enchant land. When the enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. Overgrowth, 2 and a green, enchantment aura, enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 2 green. So it's just all enchantments, right? I have 1 artifact in the deck. I have 5 instants in the deck, a planeswalker, and 1 sorcery. Like, the deck is enchantments. And they all have reasons for being here. So it's just like enchantments, you know? I don't really think there's anything more I need to say about it. So yeah, that's gonna be it. And I hope you all have a wonderful time, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.